everybody, welcome to my channel. My name's Kara and I talk about all things bunny. And today I'm telling you the story of how and where I got my bunnies. Started, I just want to put a disclaimer out there. Before I got my rabbits, I did a lot of research. However, it was very hard to find rescues in my area. In the future, I would go a different route. However, nobody should be ashamed or ridiculed for where their bunny came from, how they got them, and if they didn't do adoption through a rescue. If I went a different route, I would not have Benny and Bailey. In the long run, as long as you love your rabbits and you take care of them and you give them a good home, that's what matters. Here, Bailey. Good girl. Good girl. Over here. So I have been a bunny mom for about a year and a half at this point. I got my first rabbit on July 11th, 2013. My parents agreed that I could have a rabbit and keep it in the house. I was planning on keeping it in my brother's room, who had just moved out, so we had a large bedroom that was completely empty. I bunny-proofed everything, put together a very large dog crate, and that's where my rabbit would be held. So I did look into animal shelters. None of the ones around me had rabbits. Like I said, there aren't any rescues very close to me, so I reached out to my friend who has a ton of animals and is very into that animal community where I live. She actually works at a local farm and garden store, and she told me that the following day they were getting some rabbits in and asked me if I wanted to come see them. So yes, this is a backyard breeder situation. I do not really condone that, but like I said, I didn't know much better at that time. And I do not regret my decision because that's how I got my rabbit that I love very dearly. So anyway, I went into the shop the following day and they had 3 rabbits, 2 of which were Lops, which I am personally drawn to Lops. And they had 1 little orange furball and it was pretty much love at first sight. And I picked up the bunny and that was it. It was sealed. I was bringing that rabbit home. I don't think I even told my dad I was going to look at rabbits, so that was a bit of a surprise for him. So my friend told me that the rabbit was a girl and I named her Molly. I brought her home and she lived in that bedroom that I talked about. We bonded very quickly. There was never that period where she was afraid of me or hesitant. She was very adventurous from day one and we just got along really great. We were very close. She would cuddle with me and take naps, and everything was just absolutely amazing. So when Molly was about 6 months old, I took her to get fixed. I dropped her off at the vet, and about 6 hours later the vet called me. She told me everything went very well, but Molly was a boy. So I was pretty upset, honestly. At first, I kind of felt like I was getting a different rabbit than the one I dropped off. I know that is super dramatic, but it was just a very weird feeling. I had gotten very bonded to a little girl bunny that I knew as Molly, so the news was a bit of a shock to me. But as soon as he came home, it was all good. I renamed him Benny, that you know now, and everything has been wonderful since then. Benny is the best thing to ever come into my life. He has gotten me through some really hard times. Around the time that I got Benny, I was going through a really hard breakup. He was actually born on the day that I broke up with my ex, and I got him on what would have been our 4th anniversary. So I feel like Benny was really meant to be with me. He's gotten me through a lot of tough things. He himself has gone through a lot of illnesses and some really hard times, and he's just really taught me what strength is and resilience. And I know that might sound silly to say about a rabbit, but he's really been there for me. So So like I said, I got Benny in July, and then around November I decided I wanted to get a second bunny. I had started graduate school at that point, so I was home a little bit less, and I felt like he was maybe getting a little bored and lonely, so I started looking into adopting a second rabbit. I found a rescue that was pretty far away from me. It was about 2 hours of travel to get there, but I really liked this rescue, and I had talked to the woman who ran it, and I felt really good about it. So I brought Benny to the rescue, and we did kind of a bunny speed dating, and she brought out one rabbit named Darby. She was probably about 2 years old, and she was some sort of American mix, and her and Benny got along really well. So this rescue has a great kind of policy where you can take a rabbit home for 2 weeks and try bonding to see how it goes. If it goes well, the bunny's yours, you pay the adoption fee, and that's it. And if the bonding doesn't go well, you can bring the rabbit back. I think this is really great because some people bring a rabbit home, it doesn't go well, and they dump the rabbit off somewhere else. And after a few days of acclimating, I started the bonding process with Benny. It was going really well at first, and then about a week and a half in, she was just not having it. She started becoming very aggressive with Benny, and she was chasing him, and I did not want Benny in a situation like that. His safety and comfort is my first priority, so unfortunately it didn't work out with her, and I took her back to the rescue. I wasn't planning on jumping right back into it right away because I didn't want to stress Benny out. But a few days later, I found online a Holland Lop that was up for adoption. She was actually being up for adoption from a breeder. So it was kind of a weird situation where the breeder wanted to keep her to have babies, but she never really got big enough, so she had her up for adoption. So I went to visit and fell in love with this little girl. She was incredibly sweet. So I brought her home and I named her Lily. If you haven't seen my video on Lily, I will put it in the iCard and link it below. I don't want to get into the whole story right now, but basically after 2 weeks, she very sadly passed away from a parasite. Needless to say, that was a very horrible experience both for myself and for Benny. He was pretty much bonded with her at that point. Over the 2 weeks, they were pretty close to moving in together. They were very happy. Benny was the dominant bunny. So Benny was very devastated when she passed away, and he got very sick with a case of GI stasis. So I was both mourning Lily and getting Benny back to health. So I put off the search for a second bunny for a little while. So I really was contemplating what to do at this point. I knew I still wanted a second rabbit for Benny, but my 2 experiences obviously did not go very well. I knew it was easier to bond a rabbit if it was a baby, and I was really scared of getting a older rabbit who was sick and having something happen like it did with Lily. So I made the decision that I felt was best for me and Benny, which was to go with a breeder. I know many people do not agree with breeders, but this was what I felt was best for us. I wanted to have a healthy rabbit and a young rabbit to make bonding as easy as possible because I did not want Benny going through a broken bond again and getting sick. I also personally didn't feel like I could handle that again. It was becoming very stressful and emotional for me, and I just wanted to have a simple situation for myself and for him. Like I said before, I would not trade Bailey for the world, so I do not regret what I decided, and I am not ashamed of going to a breeder. Anyway, I did a lot of research on breeders in my area, and I found one that I felt really took care of her rabbits, and I talked to her multiple times, and I felt very comfortable with her. I even visited her rabbitry to see how the rabbits were cared for and where they were housed, and I was satisfied and comfortable. So I was put on a waiting list for the next litters that were going to be born, and once they were born and they came of age to tell their gender, she went down the waiting list and we got to choose the rabbits that we wanted. I believe I was number 7 or so. I don't remember all the rabbits that were left once the list got to me, but I know that there was a blue tort, a black tort, and a blue chinchilla. I went with the blue chinchilla. When she was about 6 weeks old, I was able to go visit her, and I instantly loved her. She was so beautiful and a chunky little baby, and when she was 8 weeks old, I brought her home. And that is how I got Little Miss Bailey. You can watch my bonding video to see how Bailey and Benny were housed before they were bonded, but I'll just fast forward to that. So when she was 6 months old, she was fixed, and then I moved her and Benny in together. Around that same time, her fur started to change a lot, and she lost the chinchilla, and now she is just blue. Like I've said in other videos, she is more standoffish than Benny. We don't have that tight bond like Benny and I do, but she has her moments, and she can be very sweet, and I love her so much. So Benny and Bailey are now bonded, happily living together. Everything is amazing. So that is the story of how I got my 2 bunnies. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed, please hit that subscribe button, and I will see you next time. Bailey, get off my computer. No, Bailey. These rabbits are really getting into trouble today. Be good, kids. No, Bailey. No. No. Bailey. Oh my god.